Hello everyone, Ace here, and today, let's talk about Joker and how I believe that Joker is the film society needs, and not merely just one that Western society deserves. Now, some viewers may recall that I actually did a review of this film already, but the truth is I've always intended to make 2 videos on this particular film. Now, unfortunately, I've been going through a case of writer's block, and truth be told, a large part of the reason for this writer's block is that there's been a nagging sensation in the back of my mind that I've missed something very important with regards to this film, and thus I needed a sort of eureka moment before I could actually make this video. But I'm happy to say that the time has finally come. So let's go ahead and dive right back in, shall we? Now, those of you who have actually seen my original review will know that I left something very specific out of it, and that was the politics and absolute hysteria surrounding Joker. In fact, the media has acted in such an utterly extreme manner that one would think that they actively wanted bad things to happen to this film, and more specifically to the audience watching it. Now, truth be told, I left out this particular element to my review of the film for 2 very specific reasons. The first being that a lot of people simply don't want politics forced on them at every turn, which I think is a perfectly reasonable request, and so I decided to accommodate them with my review. The second reason I chose to do this is because I wanted to demonstrate the fact that even if you ignored the political themes within this movie, as well as the outright hysteria surrounding it, you'd find that Joker is still a fantastic film. One that is well and truly not only worth watching now, but worth watching generations from now. But even still, there are very definitely political messages within this film. And one key political theme that everyone seems to have overlooked until now is the fact that the film actually implies a very specific cause as to why Gotham has lost its civility, which I would argue is actually the most important social issue that the film presents, as I would argue that this actually played a bigger role in turning Arthur Fleck into the Joker than even his own mental issues. Now, granted, that isn't to say that his mental issues didn't play a role in that transformation. However, I will say that its role was to essentially turn him into a sort of canary in the coal mine, making him the first person to snap in all of Gotham. I say first to snap because his actions do ultimately inspire others, such as the clown protesters that are seen even within the trailers. But the fact that others end up snapping after him does demonstrate that the problem is not unique to Arthur Fleck, and that the main cause for this hostility and transformation is found within the community of Gotham itself, a city within which civility has been replaced by absolute apathy, hidden under a veil of false empathy and faux outrage. But as I've already hinted, Joker the film actually provides a very specific potential cause to this loss of civility and rise of outright hostility bubbling just beneath the surface. And this specific cause actually introduces itself to the audience within the very first scene of the movie, and stays with us throughout the entirety of the film, almost hiding in plain sight. And that is the fact that literally everything that happens in Gotham is politicized by the media, even if the events in question had no political motivation behind them. For example, fairly early on, Arthur Fleck does something notable enough to make the news. And as a result, the mainstream media, as well as the political establishment, waste no time in trying to politicize this particular turn of events, and spin it to fit their particular narratives, with some newspapers vilifying Arthur Fleck as a monster while others glorify him as a hero. All the while, both sides of course attempt to use this news to push their particular political narratives, which only further causes social unrest in the film. Ironically, however, the fact is that Arthur Fleck repeatedly states that he is not political, nor were his actions politically motivated in any way, demonstrating the absolute dishonesty within the mainstream media of Gotham, and how they are far more interested in pushing an agenda rather than simply presenting the truth. So in other words, what I'm suggesting here is that the film is actually making the argument that the mainstream media's insistence that everything must be injected with politics is actually causing this rise in tension within Gotham, and as a consequence creates the atmosphere within which Joker is born. Now granted, this is right now just a correlation, and that alone does not guarantee causation, but I can at least make a logical argument that backs up my particular line of thinking here. For you see, there's a very good reason why the old saying is one should never discuss politics or religion in polite company. And this is because discussing either is one of the fastest and most surefire ways to cause arguments in one's personal life. But unfortunately for the residents of Gotham, escaping politics does not seem to be an option, as the media has managed to even politicize the city's very culture. And as a result, instead of not talking about politics, everyone is simply forced to walk on eggshells at all times. In fact, I would even take it a step further and suggest that perhaps Arthur's lack of political affiliation may have even helped further ostracize him from that particular society. to the tune that a lot of people simply first assume that his actions are politically motivated, and seem to find it actually rather alien when they learn that his actions aren't politically motivated at all. So as I've already said, I do genuinely believe that this film is actively making the statement that it is perhaps not wise to politicize literally everything about the world, and that it may ultimately lead to an increase in extremism and tensions throughout our community, which is something that we definitely see these days. Demonstrated most clearly, I would argue, by the outright hostility and hatred that the mainstream news media has had towards this film, and the absolute panic and concern that many have had in response. Basically, in their efforts to sabotage this movie, the mainstream media has only served to completely prove Joker's point, and also ensure the film's commercial success. Which I would argue is great news because it actually proves that Hollywood should actively ignore the mainstream news media, that they are no longer relevant to the discussion of modern filmmaking. And I also believe that this is great news because the fact that the film is so successful means that more people will see it, which also means that the messages within this movie will spread even further. Ultimately, I would even go so far as to say that Joker is going to be viewed in the film industry the same way that Woodstock was viewed in the music industry. An event that is so utterly important that it transcends merely being key to a particular art form, but rather a defining moment in the culture of an entire generation. And in this day and age, we definitely and desperately needed a film like Joker. Because like it or not, we live in a society that teaches us that if we didn't talk about politics, that would be a political message. In any case, this has been Ace. Hope to see you guys again soon. Take care. Ace out.